Hey guys, how's it going? Doing a little bit something different. This is somewhat pinball arcade related. If you've been here during my tournaments before, you may have noticed sometimes it gets warm in here. I've really been trying to do everything I can to keep the temperatures down. If it's cooler outside, that door leads out to the garage, and then I can just like open up the garage and blow fans in here and cool it off. I also have multiple fans in here trying to blow the air through the room. And like that one's blowing across the ceiling, trying to blow the air like down the hallway to get the hot air out of here. And then the last thing I recently had bought, well, maybe a year ago, was this little swamp cooler thing, which it does work. It does help. A couple downsides to it. Basic. So if you don't know what a swamp cooler is, it essentially has, a large fan in here, and then it has like paper filters on both sides in the back. And then the bottom of it, you fill with water. And then it basically takes water, runs it across there, and as it pulls it through, it's like, evaporative. It's cooling the air, makes it a little bit cooler in here. The benefit is you can open up the top, dump a bunch of ice in the top, not much. You can only really fill that center tray with ice. And then, a half hour later, because let's say it's running and it says it's 70 degrees in here. It could drop down, if I'm like really on top of it with ice, it might say like upper 50s. But you'll go through a lot of ice real quick. And then the ice is staying in here and it's filling up that thing in the bottom. And once that gets full, you got to go drain it. And then it's just that water's warming up and eventually get back into the upper 60s, and then you're back into, it needs kind of a constant maintenance or whatever. Not really maintenance, but if you're trying to really keep it cold in here. So before I just put a mini split right there and run the tubes over and outside, that would be the end all solution to this. And then I just have the mini split during tournaments, parties, whatever. So for now, one thing I want to try, this is pretty cheap. If you want to try this on your own, whatever. So, these aren't really meant to come apart. I took it apart. So now, cause this is the back panel. I got the back panel off and I did modify it a little bit. So now it comes up and goes across and you can kind of slide it up in there, lock it into place. And you still have a screw here and a screw over there to lock this all down. So it'll still be just as stable, no problem. So if you wanted to just stop here, you can pop that panel off. You could just get like a big brick, like a 1 gallon brick of ice, drop it in the bottom, then fill it up, to the max line and just recirculate. And that would probably last quite a bit and do pretty good. But I've already ordered a bunch of parts to do this differently. So right here, you have the hose. This usually plugs in right here, and it's just going from the pump down at the bottom, up, and all the water comes in the top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put two fittings right here. The hose is going to come up, connect to that fitting, come out. I've got a bunch of hose here. It's going to go to that cooler. So once it comes out and goes to that cooler, in here, I have an automotive oil cooler. That's a little over 15 inches long. This is a pretty good size cooler. My hand is 10 inches, so you can kind of get a good idea. So that's going to stay in there. The water will come in. I'm going to put 2 fittings right here on the corner. One fitting will come down, come to this. It'll go through here. I'm going to put a plastic or maybe aluminum or something that doesn't rust grill over this to protect these fins. Because this is just, this was like $22 or something. So pretty cheap, universal on Amazon. Then it'll come out here, and in a perfect world, I'll just have it come to another fitting. It'll come back around and it'll go into the normal fitting here and then fill this up. So now you're getting, and then of course you just fill this, put like 1 inch of water in there and then just tons of ice. So you can just dump this, and this will just be under like the back end of a pinball machine, you know, kind of hidden out of the way. So if that's not enough, and the one reason I'm doing videos of this, something I need to test. First thing I want to test is put some water in here, turn it on, turn the pump on, and just take this hose and just see how the flow looks, just this by itself. Then I want to hook up all these fittings and then just have the other hose, you know, that would be coming back from the cooler, and just see what its flow is. If the flow is horrible, I picked up, which they sell bigger ones. This one's kind of small, but realistically, it's about the same size as the one that's in there. This is another, this is a 5-volt pump, so it actually just plugs in with USB. So what I'll probably do is put this on the outside. It can go in the water if I want it to, but I'll probably just put it on the outside because it does have a controller on the side here. So what I might have to do is just run this at full power. But I mean, it shouldn't really hurt anything if you overfill the top, because it's just the water's coming back in here to the top. And then it's filling this inner tray, and then it leaks over the edge and then goes to those holes. And then if it gets too much, it just goes into these bigger vents up top. So if for some reason that small little pump is just doing so much that it's starting to go in these, you know, spillover things, I can turn that one down a little bit. And I just figure I'll just attach it to the side, and then I can just plug it in, because where my pinball machines plug into on those power strips, they have USB ports, because that's all this plugs in with, is this USB port. So, and then this is 20 fitted tubing that I got. This was $9. So to go over pricing here, I already had this, obviously. So if you have something of the same kind, this on sale was around, it's normally like $200, and then it on sale was like $130 or $140. So it is just nice to just turn it on and use it as a fan. It does normal swing back and forth, has different modes. I can go, you know, sweep the power up and down. It has all this other stuff. But the main thing is speed. Even on low, it's very quiet, and you can feel it all the way across the room hitting you. So low, maybe even medium is like the most I ever use it on. And then, yeah, you hit, so I can actually go ahead. I unplugged it yesterday. Because the one thing is, the reason why it's unplugged, whenever I took this all apart, I wanted, you need to clean out the bottom of that. There was still some, you know, this paper is fibers, you know, there was still some stuff down in there. It wasn't like dirty or anything, but there was stuff in there. So I'd like to be able to just get in there and be able to clean that out. But, so yeah, it is unplugged right now, but just using it as a normal fan, it works pretty nice. This is only, you know, maybe 10 pounds, you know, with no water in it. You know, this one holds 7 gallons, so it is on the bigger side, but 7 gallons is going to add, what, 50 pounds? Is it 8 pounds a gallon or something? So that will add some weight. But the main thing is, especially like if I'm outside and we want to take this out to the deck, I could throw a huge bag of ice in there, and this thing could run for hours and just you know, just go through there and just, you know, chill that water. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah, I want to do some flow testing on stuff. I do need to order some. I went with the 5/16 kit. Having now had this apart and seeing the size of that hose is 3/8. So not a big deal, but you know, they sell, you know, hoses. And also I did notice my hose fits perfectly inside, and once it's in there, it's hard to get out. So even if I just slide it in there and put a zip tie over it, perfect. It's not going to leak. It'll be fine. That was my other thought, was if I wanted to, I could not do fittings and just have it go on the inside. That way my fittings were on the inside here, and then where this hose is connected here would be on the inside. So if it did leak, it would just leak back down into the thing. No big deal. And then over here, this is all 5/16 to 5/16, and my pump is 5/16. So if I wanted to, I could just put my pump on the inside, but then I would just have to run this thin little wire, which it probably Yeah, I mean, I just pushed it all the way down over the wire. So I could have that all in there. So if it did leak, it's contained in there, and then, so I might just drill holes and have it all on the inside of that might be the way to go. The downside is if I do it that way, and let's say I just want to take the swamp cooler somewhere, I would have to take this panel off and then just have like a barrel connector or butt connect, whatever you want to call it. So I could just take those two tubes, connect them together instead of coming to the cooler. I could just take those two out, reconnect the two factory ones. No big deal. So might do that just so I can move it back to factory. But the next thing I need to do is some flow testing and go from there. But random stuff I do on the weekends. This is my last little resort. If I can have this pumping out pretty much ice cold for a couple hours, there's really no reason for a mini split in here at that point. Which a decent mini split I think is like $500-600. So, and I really only need it for tournaments, and then even then I only need it for, let's say, 4 or 5 of them a year. I don't need it for any of the if it's less than 70 degrees outside, I don't need this, because then I can just open the door and just blow in outside air. So considering my tournaments are at night, 7, 8 o'clock at night, I really only need this badly, let's say 5 times a year. So but we'll go from there, see how this works. Going over prices, like I said, I got it on sale. It was on Amazon. This is a pretty big one. They go bigger, but this one was like $130, so that was no big deal. And I've used it for about a year already, and it's been great. The cooler was the cheapest cooler I could find that was in the size that I wanted. Doesn't even have a drain on it. That was $30. The transmission cooler was like $22. 20 feet of hose, because I don't know if it's going to be over here, which is usually where I keep it, and then it's going to go back around the chairs, and I may have the cooler underneath Black Pyramid. So I got 20 foot of hose. This was $9. And then the pump was like $8. So the pump and the transmission put you at 30, that put you at 60. So we're at $70, give or take change. Let's say $80 for this little project here. We'll see how it goes. And then I can what I plan on doing is just freezing like the large Rubbermaid bowls. I'll freeze those, and I'll just throw like a couple 1-gallon ice cubes in there with some water. And that'll, keep us for the whole tournament, no problem. So there we go. Let's I'll do some flow testing in a while. I don't know if I'm gonna do some flow testing right now. But one thing I would also like to do is just run this, put it back to factory, and just run this for like an hour, and then just kind of say, okay, no games on, ambient temperature, it's sitting at 69 degrees after an hour, and then hook this up and then run it for another hour with that being full of ice, and see what that's holding after an hour. So just kind of give you a good idea. So but again, I would like to do it, which best case scenario, this room's not going to get any colder. I'll have all the games off, no people in here. And because you put 12 people in here with all the games on, and it gets, that's a lot of heat. So I'm trying, but we'll see how this goes before I just have to buy a mini split. So see you in a minute. Okay, so we're going to do some flow testing here. You can see through that little window, we're looking through the inside out, but we're about halfway full on water. And right now the fan is on low, and it is moving a lot of air. I did go ahead and turn it on for a second. It has a lot of flow. I don't think we're going to need that little pump, or I don't think that little pump's going to do enough to keep up. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm not sure I'm going to do this. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to hit the pump button, and then that's a lot. Okay, so you just saw what it was with just the factory pump. This is with it all hooked up. no extra pump. So you can see that's a lot less than what it was before. That's down a lot. So turn that off. This is our little USB pump here. I don't remember which way it goes, bear with me. Wish they marked it. I don't think they did. Well, let's try this, see what happens. I would like to maybe put this on an on-off switch because it does not have one right now. Okay, that's backwards. Okay, so that's on the lowest setting, and you can already see it's a lot more. Then as I turn it up, that's on full power. So I think I can run this pretty much on the lowest setting, and it's going to be better than what the other one was by itself. So I think we'll be good there. So there we go. And then once I'll just put this on the side of the cooler, actually route this stuff the way it's supposed to be done. It'll be all good. Okay, so I have to put the back panel on before I can fully test this. But as you can see, it's just going up right there to the factory connector. That was one of their zip ties that they had. It's coming down. Right now I'm doing no junctions or anything, so it's just coiled around. I did notice whenever I lifted the lid on this, I had a pretty bad kink right there. So that could have been why the original pump wasn't flowing that good. But, I mean, we'll kind of see because it still worked fine with this one. This pump is obviously just going to be right here, coming out, and then I'll just have this USB port. Right now I just got it plugged into my signs over here, so I did have to turn on the arcade to get my USB ports to live. I want to put that on some type of on-off switch so I can leave it plugged in all the time and just hit a button, you know, have it somewhere where I can reach it, you know, so whenever I hit cool I can hit the pump button. That's going to be kind of a downside. My only other thought is to see what the voltage is for that pump and see, you know, if it's 5 or 6 volts I could just wire it directly, but I don't know, they're not going to be in the same place. That's not going to work. So yeah, I'm just going to have a second power button. But okay, let me put the back on and we'll see how it works. Okay, so this has now been running for a while. This is just completely set up. That pump is on pretty much full blast because that would just, it seemed about right coming out of the top. So you can see that's completely full. It's not overflowing. It's kind of doing its normal thing. So it has been running for a while on medium. It's been hovering around 67, 68 degrees. I did have to turn the arcade on, but there's not a bunch of people in here, so I think we're fine. So now it's kind of been plateaued a little bit for a while. I'm just going to put a little bit of ice in here and a little bit of water because I'm just going to let it run for about half an hour and then I need to leave. So just kind of get a baseline. And I don't see it getting any colder than me just dumping ice straight in it. Obviously that's going to be the best. But you can barely put any ice in it is the issue. So with this, if I wanted to, I could go buy a jumbo bag of ice and dump it in there and just, you know, be good for a long time. Or what I plan to do is those large Rubbermaid totes that are probably about a gallon, Rubbermaid totes, the bigger Rubbermaid bowls. I'd like to have a couple of those that are just frozen on hand. And then whenever I need them, I just dump them in there and I got some big chunks of like blocks of ice. So it's, yeah, like I don't see it being any colder, just, you know, being able to hold it for a longer period of time because I can do a whole chest of ice. So see how it goes here in a minute. Okay, so I've let this run now for, you know, at least a half an hour or so. And I got to go, I'm out of time. So, but as you can see, it's holding 62 degrees, which is really good. But the main thing is I didn't have much ice to put in here, but it's still ice. So that's a good thing, because usually, you know, you put ice in the top, it's gone really quick. So, I mean, I only did, that chunk was only, you know, a little bit bigger than that. So, and I've got about 1 gallon of water in there. So, I mean, you could always dump a whole bag in here and a couple gallons of water. And so I'm gonna have to mount the pump, but it's just running right now. It's been running on full speed. So, I call that a win. I mean, if it's gonna hold this or maybe a little bit colder for 3-4 hours, that's gonna be crazy. It might even go longer. I mean, then you just dump more ice into that cooler and you're good. So, but that's, if it can hold 62, I mean, I don't know, I'm just amazed that ice is still there, because when you dump ice in the top, it's gone pretty quick because the water's just going over it. And yeah, it'll drop to like 55 degrees, but half an hour later, it's already back into the 60s. It's already climbing. So, because it just ruins it. And then that gets full. So right now we're not really using any of that. Whenever I add ice and stuff, that level is going to stay the same. So I call that a win. So see you guys later. Okay, so I thought I'd do one more, kind of more of a long-term demonstration, or we'll see what's going on here a little experiment, get some time variables. So it's been 24 hours, so that water's still kind of cold, but I mean, it's, you know, it's 70 degrees in here, but it still feels kind of cool to the touch. I got some ice out of the freezer that I'd put in. Those have only been in the freezer for a couple hours, so those aren't really solid. And that's just a little, so I mean, that's, let's say that's, if you buy the big bags of ice, that's about half a bag of ice. So I'm gonna go ahead, get this turned on. You know, it's gonna be sitting, you know, 68 degrees, kind of like always. And then I'm just gonna dump that ice in there, come back. It's about 1 o'clock right now, just finished lunch. So we'll see where this is at, like later tonight, or, you know, I'll check on it throughout the day. I'm going to be down here working on games for a little bit. But, you know, my main concern is obviously 2 to 3 hours. Anything after that, it's golden. I mean, I could either put more water in there, put more ice in there. That'll be great. But I'd really like to see how this does. You know, I'm going to leave the arcade on, let it try to get a little bit warm in here. You know, I don't have 10 people standing around to heat it up, but that's where we're going to start. Oh, I did find that plugs in, excuse me, that pump plugs in with a USB cable. You can kind of see it over there. I did find on Amazon USBs that have on-off switches. So what I can do is once I hide this, I can just run that USB to something I can easily reach, and then I can just, you know, whenever I turn this on, I'll just flip the switch. 2 10-footers was like $8. So not a big deal. But there we go. I'm going to dump these in there and get this turned on and going, and I'll check back here in, you know, roughly 7 hours or so. Okay, so just making a little, this is where I started. Just dump that in there. Yeah, these weren't completely solid at all, but just dump that in there, got it plugged in, and we are at, oh, it just dropped. It was 68, just dropped to 67. So, okay. Okay, so I've been checking on this on and off today. The ice disappeared pretty quick, I think just because of the amount of water, and I didn't put in much ice. But it did drop down, I want to say 62, 63. Stayed down there for probably 2 or 3 hours. And now it's been around, I guess, 6 hours, 6.5 hours, something like that. It's almost 7 o'clock, and I put it in there at 1. So at least 6.5 hours, and it's still holding 65. Arcade's been on the whole time, so it is, you know, at least generating that heat and trying to warm up the room. So I think besides the fact of dumping a larger, you know, put in a whole bag of ice, or the better idea to last longer, I think would be like a solid cube. Like take a gallon bucket and just solid freeze it, you know, for a day, you know, and have a couple gallon like ice jug, like the gallon milk jugs, have like 2 of those just frozen solid. I think that would be a great thing. Just put 2 of those in there, and that way it would take longer to, you know, melt those down just being solid like that. But there we go. I mean, that was my main thing was, you know, obviously putting ice directly in there is going to be colder, but that always disappeared really quick. So I think this is going to be more of a long, you know, I can take this, you know, out on the deck, you know, fill that thing full of ice, you know, and I could actually have like cold air outside on the deck for a couple hours or something. But for in here, I think this is a win. I think this is going to be a, you know, like I said, my main thing is like 2 or 3 hours, you know, for tournaments. That's all I'm really looking for. So, and maybe, I don't know, you know, this is kind of just delaying maybe ever getting a mini split. So we'll do this for a year or so, see how it goes. All right, see you later.